Our GOAT, Donald Harris.
We've been busy mapping where weapons flow in this world, especially those that originate in the United States. And this is part 2 of a series on the arms trade. If you watched part 1, you'll already know that there's a long history of businessmen getting rich off of war. But I wanted to see what the weapons trade looks like today, using data. So after months of working on this, we finally got a map that looks nice. It looks pretty. The thicker the lines, the more weapons flow. So in this video, I want to go deep into these lines to show you what they can teach us about how the United...
If one more person sends me my friend Boy's latest video on the CIA, which is already fucking here, okay? I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. Dude, I promise you. I swear to fucking Christ. Okay? I swear to Allah. I swear to Christ. I swear to the Prophet Muhammad. Okay? I know that there's a Boy CIA video. Okay? I don't know how to communicate this to you. Okay? I love you all. I know you get really excited. You're like, dude, you gotta watch this. I know. And it's sick. It's so cool that you guys see a cool video and you're like, oh God, I can't wait for Hasan to watch this. Okay? It fills my heart with joy. But you know what doesn't fill my heart with joy? When I see that same message in the chat adding me for the 7,000th time today, okay, I promise I'm gonna react to it. Wallah, I'm gonna react to it. I promise you, okay? Please stop posting it over and over again. Jesus fucking Christ, dude.
The United States projects its power, about what happens when you sprinkle weapons all around the globe. I've been looking at every one of these countries, and with the help of my new colleague Sam, I'm hoping to bring you into a much deeper understanding of the American arms trade. I also want to let you in on some of the conversations.
I wish there was a way to key search it to see exactly how many people fucking posted that in the chat today. This is another example of something that's like otherwise positive, okay? This is another example of something that's like otherwise positive, something that's like actually good for the stream. You know what I mean? If I hadn't seen it. Versus like after the 7,000th time I've seen it, I'm like, oh my God.
I've been having with experts in this field, which for me was very helpful in decoding all of this.
Hello. I'm Jeff Abramson. I'm a senior fellow at the Center for International Policy. And I also lead something called the Forum on the Arms Trade, which is really where my passion is.
I'm Bill Hartung. I'm currently a senior research fellow at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. I've been working on arms trade issues since the 90s.
Why do we sell weapons to other countries in the first place?
I mean, at the most basic level, it is to promote peace and security. When we talk about the currency of international relationships, sometimes weapons become that currency. And what we desperately need is alternate currencies.
Well, there's the textbook reasons and real reasons. You know, the Pentagon would tell you it promotes stability, it helps allies defend themselves. So there's this kind of strategic argument, but it's really about if you believe the U.S. should be able to go anywhere, fight any battle, beat any adversary. It's kind of premised in a fairly militarized view of foreign policy.
The United States sold weapons to 103 countries, and that's major weapons. Generally, whenever the United States provides weapons to another country, they have to agree on how to use them, and they're not supposed to use them to violate human rights. But it's hard to see the leverage that the United States can use with that government.
Chatter, I will put you in the Associated Press building. Do you understand me? That we just saw. If you fucking ask me to watch a short Sinead O'Connor interview one more fucking time, I will put you in the Associated Press building in Gaza, okay? Stop.
One last thing I want to do before we dive fully in is give you a theoretical point in IR, international relations. Understanding this will help us understand this map much better. It's this concept of balance of power. The big paradox in international relations is that Countries will naturally get into conflict with each other unless they calculate that it is unwise to do so, that they actually don't have a chance of winning or gaining anything. So countries are always building up their weapons so that they have just enough so that their enemy will not attack them, but not too much to where they will provoke some kind of escalation and their enemy will start to get into a race to have more weapons. Every country is making this calculation all of the time, this balance of power with their rivals in their region. And weapons systems and capabilities tend to be...
There's only one view of international relations theory, man. What the fuck? Yeah, obviously. But he's not going to... He's not... This is why I said he's not going to do a materialist analysis here.
The ingredients that are used for that calculation, for that balance of power. When the US government approves a bunch of weapons being sent to some country, in all of their press releases, they always say the same thing, which is that this sale will not alter the balance of power in the region. An imbalance of power is what leads to escalating conflict and instability. What an irony that the promotion of peace and security is sell killing machines to other countries.
There are people who believe this creates better peace and security. At the moment of the transfer, it seems like a good idea. It feels like you've got to provide them.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. There is no fucking good reason, okay? The real reason is money. Military contractors are making money. They're making money on the front end with subsidies, okay? And then they're making money on the back end after selling those weapons. And then they go back to the government and say, well, our resources are diminished. You know, our coffer's empty. We no longer have these weapons because we sent the refurbished ones to Ukraine. Then they turn around and they demand more money. Rinse and repeat, and the GDP grows. That's it. And one of the best parts about it is that more weapons being shipped out require even larger weapons, even bigger weapons, even more weapons. That's it. And that is a necessity. That's a necessity. Constant conflict has to occur. Constant conflict has to occur so that we can continue exploiting the global south, places where the conflict does actually occur. And sometimes that culture of war comes back and knocks on our door, okay? These violent means do sometimes have violent ends. The chickens do come home to roost, 9/11. But guess what? 9/11 also feeds into the profit margins of the military-industrial complex. Because that means we need more weapons now. Dude, they hit us home. More weapons, more weapons, more weapons. Bigger weapons, better guns. Dude, you're literally spoiling the whole video. I don't think he's going to talk about it like this because I think ultimately... I mean, I think it's ultimately silly to fucking talk about war and or weapon shipments overseas as like an objectively good thing. There's no one. I don't think a single fucking person. I don't think a single fucking person legitimately believes that.
Or like, this is the only solution: is you put these weapons in this situation because we're out of options.
The first takeaway from this is just what you can see immediately, that the United States has a massive presence all around the world. You could look at these lines as almost tentacles of US influence in almost every country on Earth, selling jets and guns and tanks and missiles and bombs and radar and helicopters in exchange for influence.
I'd say at the real global level is this idea that if we are engaging in you in the arms trade, if you are buying weapons from us, we will have some say in how you act.
But that's about all this map will show you. The US has influence all over the world. It's something we kind of know. I want to get a deeper understanding of what's going on with each of these lines, which is why I reached out to my good friend, Sam Ellis. Sam Ellis, creator of Search Party. Do you have time to help me out?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Sam specializes in taking something that's complicated and giving us a better insight into it, helping us learn from it using design and visual language. So Sam's down here and we're going to figure out how to decode this map.
There's a place that collects all the
that's our guy. What we are trying to do here is we want to understand the why. Because this map doesn't say why. It doesn't say like what is the US's motive in this. It's often securing the loyalty of a regime somewhere, and weapons are the currency for securing loyalty.
The US sometimes wants stability in the region, and it achieves that sometimes by wanting stability in terms of, we picked you as a government, we would like you to stay in power.
One of the reasons we sell is so that we don't have to be the world policeman everywhere all the time, doing all the work. We can have people would basically outsource it to.
You know, what I'd like this map system to somehow convey is that what the US buys with the currency of weapons varies. And I think it would be really interesting to zoom in to some of these case studies and somehow show what the US is buying.
Yeah. So stability, it's
allies.
Ally, stability, resources, relationship. And we put all the categories on, and then you zoom into the different combinations. Let's zoom into Saudi Arabia. They have all four. Why do they have all?
This literally feels like first year IR majors discovering why we can't just bomb Iran. Yeah, I mean, in some respects, it's like fun and cool to see people who otherwise have not been educated on this matter. Not the guys in the video, just the people watching, get like basic international relations in a more digestible format with like cool maps and a bunch of like former Mormons sitting around looking like hipsters.
All four. Let's go to Colombia. They have two. Why two?
So when we zoom into these cases, we should be more descriptive and less analytical.
So like, what do you think the map is going to look like? Like, do you think that the most weapons are going to go to the countries with the most number of badges?
Yes. At the end of the day, there is a deep underlying force in all of this, which is that the more weapons we sell, the more money they make. Yeah. And the people in this town want to make a shit ton of money.
Okay, so the goal here is to take this map, which shows who the US is selling weapons to, and add what they're asking for in return. But that's a lot easier said than done. Because the US doesn't say exactly what it wants back for these countries in exchange for weapons, it's hard for us to make any definitive claims. But I think if we look at these countries' locations,
I think you need to look at America as like 10 companies in a fucking trench coat. And then a lot of this stuff will magically make a lot more sense. Okay? Because the American government doesn't operate with a higher purpose. It operates with a very simple purpose. And that is to, one, maintain global capitalism, and two, do it while earning a tidy profit for our mega corporations. The weapons manufacturers and the defense industry that's it. That's like the two primary industries.
history and their relationship with the US, we can surmise that the US is asking for basically 5 main things: stability, alliances, friendship, help against an enemy or a rival, and vital resources. So we looked at the more than 100 countries that the US sells weapons to and tried to estimate what they could give the US in return. And then we mapped it. So now we can see not only who the US sells weapons to, but we have an idea of why. And although this is based on subjective estimations by us, it's still useful to see that American weapons come with expectations, namely that these countries will help the US project its influence and its power all over the globe. So if we think of weapons as a currency, then the most common thing it's buying is friendship. Weapons are one of the most effective ways for the US to get other governments on its side. And so it's a goal of almost every weapons deal. But some countries have more to...
Bro, there's nothing more Ameribrained. And I'm thinking about this from the framework of like domestic politics, where you talk about weapons as a commodity where you barter friendship on the other side of said commodity. Like, no wonder we're the most fucking gadded up country on the planet. Okay? That was what I was talking about the cycle of fascism overseas coming back home, the chickens coming to roost. That's another impact of that. We have a very violent culture that props up this weapons manufacturing. And then that violent culture inevitably yields domestic policy for material reasons, like the AR platform. For those of you who are not as knowledgeable, the AR-15, a lot of that shit was in surplus after Vietnam. Conveniently, around that time frame, we started selling it domestically as well. And inevitably, in the last couple of decades, that became a symbol of Americanness. Okay? Why? Well, because we kept manufacturing it more and more. Why? Because one, it's pretty easy to shoot. Much easier than like handguns and stuff. But also, it has a shit ton. AR-15 during Vietnam. No, the AR platform originated off of isn't it the M16? I think it was the M16. Yeah. So anyway, the AR platform in and of itself, however, is also a very good gun for additional parts. So it's basically a weapon that you can put a lot of parts on. It looks cool. There's a whole different cottage industry that specifically sells different parts, different kits. Even more fucking money in for aftermarket shit, peripherals. Different grips. Perfect.
To offer than others. If we zoom to Europe, you'll see that the US is also buying stronger allies. The US is in the NATO alliance with most of these countries, so the US sells them weapons as a way to make their defenses as strong as possible and to prepare them for the possibility that they may have to fight a war together. The US considers many countries allies, but we only included countries that the US is obligated to defend because it's signed a treaty. Ukraine is an example of a country that the US sells lots of weapons to, but isn't in the NATO alliance. Instead, the US is asking for Ukraine to counter an enemy. We've defined 4 countries as the main enemies or rivals of the US. The US often sells weapons to their neighbors as a way to fight a war against them or...
Dog, be for real, man. North Korea? It's just like North Korea, really? Like that's a valid threat? North Korea, the great rival of the United States of America. Yeah, M16 is very modular and easier to take apart than Korean World War II era rifles, along with smaller rounds compared to the 30-06. You can have 4 rounds of 5.56 for the same weight. Okay, dude, gun perverts.
Deter them from starting a new one. Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014, and so the U.S. is selling Ukraine...
It's like saying one of your rivals is a fucking kid. Yeah, what are we? We are the most Israel country, bro. Israel is so us. You know, their biggest rivals are like Palestinian babies, so... very America.
And in exchange, the U.S. is stopping Russia from conquering it and other countries in the region. In the Middle East, the U.S. sells weapons to a number of countries as a way to counter its other enemy, Iran. The primary example is Israel, who gets a huge number of weapons from the U.S. But the U.S. also sells weapons to countries that control vital resources that it needs. In the case of Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states, that's oil.
The only power the Democratic People's Republic of Korea is that they don't see ads at the top of the hour, unlike you motherfuckers. But if you want to also live the glories of being a part of the Iacha Republic, you know, Cholima on the wing type shit, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free. Iacha! Yeah, the Jusha lives on. Here's the 3-minute break now.
But a vital resource can also mean a strategic passageway, like the Suez Canal in Egypt, where a lot of the world's shipping goes through. By selling them weapons, the U.S. is asking these countries to protect and give it access to these resources. In Africa, the U.S. sells weapons to many governments, not just to secure resources, but also to try and make them more stable. War and coups have made many regions in Africa volatile and unpredictable. And the U.S. hopes that by selling weapons to these governments, it can help them stay in power and maintain the status quo. It's important to understand that these labels often overlap, like in East Asia. China, a major U.S. rival, is pushing to assert its control over this region, and the U.S. is responding by selling weapons to countries standing in its way. Some are allies. Some control vital resources, like Taiwan's semiconductor industry. Then there are many that the U.S. feels it needs to strengthen so that China can't destabilize the region. So now we can see not only where these weapons flow, but why. The definitions are based on some subjective categories that we came up with, but even still, it's useful to see that American weapons come with expectations that these countries will help the U.S. project influence and power all over the globe.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Man, I'm glad Sam came into this story. He is the master of taking complex systems and breaking them down to get a deeper understanding of really rich data. Search Party is the channel I started with Sam last year, and it is awesome. It is similar to what we do here, but with a very different journalistic approach. You should go subscribe because it's really good stuff. So for the final chapter of this video, I'm going.
Ethical reacts aside, did bro really say we give weapons to Africa to ensure regional stability and ensure that regime change does not happen? Like, we're just going to glance over that as though historically this has been a good thing? Not just in Africa, but like, you know, my man, what you're describing, if left alone, implies that like the Iran-Contra scheme that we set up was an objective good. Okay? Like how are you? I can't tell if they're trying to say this is what America claims and we don't agree with it, or if they straight up are just like lapping up the propaganda. Because the thing is, we do that and it's not a good thing. And it objectively is like stability at what cost? Stability at a very bad cost. It's also ironic because those weapons sometimes do end up in the wrong, by American standards, wrong hands. Or sometimes it ends up in the right American standard hands. So it's wild to make a video like this and talk about like ensuring stability by giving weapons to these governments, which literally is used on civilians. But also on top of that, he turned around and said, that's why we give all the countries around China these weapons to make sure that China doesn't destabilize the area. How do you make a map like this talk about how America is stabilizing the world by giving them weapons, and then turn around and go, and China is destabilizing the world? It's like a child's way of approaching this subject. Now, here's the other part of this that I don't understand. And that's why like realpolitik can be flipped on its head, and oftentimes is, by the likes of John Mersheimer. Because on the other side, the moment that you realize that like the other side of the equation are also fucking human beings with wants, interests in national security, you know what I mean? Like, then yeah, you're describing a fucking arms race, and it makes it perfectly valid for those guys to do the same shit. Why wouldn't they? There's probably some fucking Chinese Johnny Harris out there on Douyin making the same video about China from the exact same fucking framework. Like, what is happening here? Like, do you not just think that like those, like if you just leave it at this is ensuring regional stability for states that are aligned with the United States of America, and you don't think about like human beings on the other side of that equation, you know, because you talked about the four big evils, our four foreign adversaries: China, Russia, Iran, and the mighty Democratic People's Republic of Korea, of course. Who could forget? Okay, well, they got humans there too. They got a government there. That government has interests. They have the same exact principles. They want self-preservation. They want regional stability in their own direction. You know what I mean? So I guess it's fine. They're doing the same shit on their end, but might is right. We're doing it more, so we're correct. Is that what it is? You're clearly just jaded by your America bad take.
Going to address something that many of you familiar with the arms trade are maybe thinking about right now, which is, does all of this actually work? If weapons are a currency for influence and the US is using that currency to buy stuff, to buy influence or stability around the world, does that actually work the way that the Pentagon and the United States government think it does?
No, it doesn't.
The short answer is sometimes, but
no, it never does, man. 9/11. Remember 9/11? 9/11. 9/11. 9/11. 9/11. No.
Not really. Where weapons really do work is in keeping alliances strong.
There's no question some countries welcome it, allies like Korea and Japan and so forth, Australia, and it probably does cement those relationships, make it more likely they'll support the U.S. in a crunch.
But when it comes to trying to use weapons as an incentive to get countries to behave the way you want them to, that's where it kind of starts to break down. And
if other regional actors behaved in the same way that Russia does, you would have 10,000 Ukraines, okay? That's it. The only thing keeping this shit stable right now is Chinese inaction. If we're going to be real about it for a second, that's it. America keeps pushing it. And the only reason why Taiwan doesn't resemble Ukraine is because China is not retaliating or responding in the same way that Russia did. Because it would be objectively bad for everyone. That's it, though. And this isn't even me glazing up China. Okay? I know everyone's going to be like, oh, dude, fucking dick riding China again. Like, no, dude. Look at what they're... Look, when China does the exact same thing from the same framework that they're operating off of, they're doing regional stability. It's so dumb. That's the only thing stopping. It's not like these guys are like, oh yeah, we would absolutely be totally on board with like lending a hand if push came to shove on the Japanese front. And it's like, would you be better off as a consequence of that? Would you? Would Japan be better off? Would the Philippines be better off? No.
the best case for this is Saudi Arabia. You can see on this map we give a lot of weapons to Saudi Arabia. The Obama administration approved loads of weapons transfers to Saudi Arabia, and in doing so, we had some strings attached. A big one being that those weapons could not be used to violate human rights. Or from the horse's mouth, genocide, crimes against humanity, grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions, serious violations of Common Article 3 of the Geneva Conventions, attacks directed against civilians who are legally protected from attacks or other war crimes as defined by 18 U.S.C. 2441. Translation, Saudi Arabia is not to use these weapons against civilians in any of their conflicts. And yet, as
even in my lived up poli-sci class, the conclusion is that China is a power that is beneficial for the international order, but they just literally aren't America, so it's bad. Yes.
Saudi Arabia has been waging this war against Yemen, they've done exactly that.
It wasn't a war, it was a genocide. Come on, you just said it. You said it.
Using American weapons. They've bombed hospitals, weddings, and even a school bus. And we know that this is American weapons because investigators and journalists have looked at the wreckage of these attacks.
Yeah, that it's pretty obvious whose weapon it is when you can go through the rubble and find the fucking signed and sealed shell.
And looked at the actual serial numbers, concluding that these are American weapons, that they flow through these lines.
Although Saudi Arabia bombs, most people in Yemen view it as an American war.
Because it is.
Because
it is.
Arabia
because it is.
Slaughter people.
Because
Yemen,
it is.
There was sort
because
of
it is. because it is an American war, because we are doing it, because we're giving the go-ahead, we're giving the weapons, we're turning a blind eye, we're defending them politically. We are the keepers of the international rule-based order, okay? However, we make the rules and we give the orders. That's just how it works.
This notion of, well, they're an oil supplier, they're a bulwark against Iran, and those so-called larger strategic
Same with fucking Israel.
interests overrode the human rights imperatives.
America's involvement in Saudi Arabia also goes beyond just like supplying them with weapons. We also engage in refueling operations for their fucking their jets, their fighter jets that are our fighter jets that we sold them. We also give them the precision guiding for their missile systems. We do everything.
Shout out to Bellingcat, the open source investigative journalism project that helped uncover a lot of this stuff. So Saudi Arabia isn't obeying the conditions that we put on these weapons. And Congress tried to pass a resolution that said,
why are the Saudis stopped it now? No, China, literally. China facilitated a cessation of hostilities between Saudi Arabia and Iran like a couple months prior to October 7. Yeah. Literally, that is true. That is objectively true. Look it up. Literally look it up. I'm not dick riding China. Just look it up. The American response to that was, oh, it's their problem now.
Said that they were going to cut off some of this military aid that we were giving to Saudi Arabia. The problem is a lot of the power to approve these weapon sales rests with the executive, the president. So President Trump actually vetoed this resolution. And even under the Biden administration, even though there was a brief pause, the weapons have kept flowing, making it very clear that this leverage that the US thinks it has because it's the provider of all of these weapons is actually kind of reversed. Turns out Saudi Arabia has a lot more leverage than we thought.
You know, the idea is that the United States is kind of captured.
Bro, Trump said it best. Don't hate the player, hate the game, but he straight up said it. At a time when the media was significantly more contentious about arms trafficking that we were doing to Saudi Arabia, as there was a fucking genocide that Saudi Arabia was waging with our weapons, in the immediate aftermath of the Jamal Khashoggi execution by the Saudi government in an Istanbul Saudi embassy, okay? People were like, why the fuck are you still sending weapons to Saudi Arabia? Trump turned around and said, you have $10 billion? They're buying $10 billion worth of weapons. Do you got $10 billion? If they don't buy it from us, they're going to buy it from Russia. You got $10 billion? I'll give it to you right now. Are you the one buying $10 billion worth of weapons? He said it. He straight up fucking said it.
Saudi Arabia by having this weapons and defense arrangement, that the Saudis need to rely on us. They will do things that we ask them to do. Or I think the opposite is...
We have zero leverage over these countries. That's fucking not true, man. We do have leverage over these countries. It's called not giving them weapons and not giving them a political cover when they are engaging in genocide. It is ridiculous. Okay? The Saudi government does not have a fucking military without us. What the fuck are we talking about?
Now happen.
If we can't do it, how the fuck did China do it? How did China do it? Easy question, chat. How the fuck did the Chinese government sit the fucking Saudi government and the Iranian government down and were like, fix it? Enough. How did they do it? Are they just magical beings? Is that what it is? Are they magical, mystical deities out there? No, through economic ties. That's it. Through trade. So it seems like even if you're not giving him a steady flow of fucking weapons, you can still make it happen. As a superpower, you can make it happen. So now tell me, if China can do it, how the fuck can't we do it? You really going to sit here and tell me we're worse than China? That's goddamn un-American.
Happening. But Saudi Arabia has been able to turn the tides and say, hey, if you don't provide this, we'll find an alternate partner. The relationship has been perverted.
Centrist Normie, so you support Russia and China arming the world, 10 billion versus moral compass? What moral compass? No, I mean, this guy's joking, right? I assume. What do you mean? Moral compass? did you just listen to what I had to say about Donald Trump and then straight up agree with Donald Trump? Is that what's going on? Excuse me. Do you not factor in our moral compass when Saudi Arabia does genocide with our weapons versus Saudi Arabia doing genocide with Chinese weapons? Hello? We're doing a gay genocide, okay? We're doing a genocide, but the weapons have the rainbow sticker next to it instead of the Chinese flag. Have you thought about that? Also, by the way, this we're not even talking about like how $10 billion of weapons that China is selling to Saudi Arabia. I don't know where that came from, but
Okay, but Saudi Arabia is a monarchy. Maybe we have better luck influencing fellow democracies. So let's look at Israel, who receives more military aid from the United States than
democracy.
Any other country.
I think Israel's the prime example of the lack of leverage that you would think.
Oh my God. Ship me off in one of these fucking Mark 84s, dude. I just put me in one of them things, okay? I want to be laser guided. My man said we have no leverage with Israel. That is insane. That is insane. Okay. If we have no leverage with Israel, stop giving him weapons tomorrow. If we have no leverage with Israel, stop giving him weapons and also stop offering political cover. Why is there a multi-billion-dollar dedicated, not multi-billion, but like hundreds of millions of dollars in fucking in lobbying happening by AIPAC and Democratic Majority for Israel and many other groups if America just simply has no leverage? Why is the Israeli government trying so fucking hard to ensure a steady flow of weapons then? If we have no leverage, just stop. I like the we are small bean narrative here when we're talking about fucking giving weapons to Israel as they continue doing genocide. We're just small bean. And you know who else is the smallest bean of all? Fucking Israel. Israel is also a small bean. They're doing small bean genocide. Come on.
A well-developed long-term weapons relationship would have.
The U.S. government has come out and said that they are not happy with the way that Israel is conducting its war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. And yet, what we see here is an effort to push more military aid to Israel without any pause or withdrawal of these weapons transfers.
And that's the reality of the arms trade, is that we can hope countries will take things into mind. We can...
Fuck? No, man. No, there is no world in which this is how it works. Like, there is no... What the fuck? Hey, man, I know my bestie that I gave a lot of weapons to is like robbing banks, but I told him not to rob banks, okay? I'm still going to give him weapons, like more weapons. He said he's out of ammo. I'm going to give him some more ammo. And I'm going to defend him robbing the banks and be like, he didn't mean it. He really needs the money. But I'm still going to give him more arms, obviously. Duh. Fuck you mean? He just said he won't use it to rob the banks while he's robbing a bank. I know he called me from inside the bank, and it seemed muffled, like he had a balaclava on. You know, it seemed like he was robbing the bank. Well, he said he wasn't going to be robbing a bank, but I told him not to. You know, what can I do? My hands are fucking tied, dog. Also, he should be able to rob the bank. Israel has a right to rob the bank. I mean, not Israel. My friend has a right to rob the banks, but also don't kill as many civilians next time you rob the bank. And if you're going to kill those civilians, maybe they were bad and they had it coming. Did you know 98% of bank tellers are terrorists? Just an unrelated fact that I wanted to, drop in here.
Tell them we want to do things, but ultimately they end up making local decisions for their local needs.
There's a lot more cases just like this, like the Philippines, where the Duterte regime...
Bro, we're talking about guns. We're talking about guns. We're talking about guns. What could be a local need for weapons? We are talking about weapons. What is the local need for weapons? Hello? Excuse me. What is going on here? I am losing my fucking mind. They're literally talking about weapons like they're fucking sending grain, dude. What the fuck? There's only one purpose for weapons, you dumb Ameribrain dipshits. It's to kill, okay? What the fuck? Holy fuck. Americans are so lost, dude.
Has used American weapons to carry out a brutal war on drugs, murdering and jailing civilians in the process. What's confusing about this is that, in some sense, the weapons are working for U.S. interests. We sell them these weapons, we give them these weapons, we buy their support in deterring our enemy. But in the process, these weapons that we use as our currency are used for other things that have nothing to do with deterring our enemy. And sometimes it gets really out of control, like we give a lot of weapons to Turkey, a NATO ally. Turkey will then transfer that to its proxies in Syria, who will use them to fight against American-backed rebels.
Now, ask yourself, Johnny, ask yourself this question. If you arrived at this as a YouTuber who seemingly for the first time ever encountered International Relations 101 as a course, do you think the American government doesn't know that? Do you think it's a major secret for them? They're like, oh, fuck, I just watched this video from my favorite YouTuber, Jonald Harris, and I realized, damn, son, we're giving weapons to the NATO ally Turkey, which then are used against American assets and also American soldiers. Dude, what? Fuck, dude. Oh, fuck. We did it again, dude. Fuck. Oh, I hate that, dude. Shit. I got to bring in Lloyd in here. Lloyd Austin, come in here, dog. I know you got ass cancer. Come in here. You got to watch this fucking video. Jonald Harris, he done did it again. He fucking found it. Oh, shit, dude. My fucking bad. I can't believe that this happened again and again. Afghanistan, and again, Iraq, and again, every Latin American country, and again, 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 and again. Oh, man. I just fucking hate this, dog. Surely it won't happen in Ukraine, so that's a different story. Anyway, let's continue.
That are also using US weapons. So American weapons are being used on both sides of a conflict. It just feels a little bit like deja vu from the book that was written 100 years ago, stating that this was a problem, and it still kind of is. The other big issue with using weapons as your main currency for influence around the world is that weapons don't just go away. Back in the 80s, the CIA transferred a bunch of weapons to rebel fighters in Afghanistan who were fighting against the Soviets. Decades later, those same weapons were being used by those fighters and their descendants to fight against Americans who were then invading Afghanistan.
Damn.
Same thing happened in Libya. We gave a bunch of weapons.
Dude, it was a big mistake. Once again, dude, you know, how do we keep doing this? Man, sure seems strange to me. Almost like it's a streamlined process.
Weapons there, and they leaked out and ended up in the hands of militants and insurgents in Syria and South Sudan. So if weapons are this currency that don't actually give us leverage and that can create more danger than stability, why do we keep making them and sending them to over 100 countries? There's a lot of answers to that question, but one of them has to do with money. There's a lot of money in making weapons. There always has been since the Industrial Revolution. Lots of these weapons are made all over our country, intentionally creating a network of jobs that no congressman ever wants to vote down. If a congressman votes to make fewer weapons, they could be voting against a factory or production facility in their district. Add to that some of our lawmakers own shares in these companies. If these companies make money, they make money. And yet they're the ones approving the money that goes to these corporations.
Bro, I'm beginning to think that this is unsustainable and pretty violent. Guys, I don't want to say it, but it kind of does feel like having your primary industry and your primary output be death dealing kind of makes you like a villain a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, not to say, because I love America. Obviously, America, not bad. America, very good, right? But like also simultaneously, I feel like what Jonald is telling me right now is not great. You know what I mean? Fuck, dude. I don't know what's happening here. I just, fuck. No, but we had to do it. You know, regional stability.
A massive conflict of interest that we've reported on before in a previous video on insider trading. What you get is this military-industrial complex, a permanent economic business machine that is incentivized to make more and more weapons, both to prepare for war and provide national security, but also to keep people rich and to keep the constituents of lawmakers happy. So, in short, one of the reasons the map looks like this is to keep a bunch of private corporations nice and rich. Okay.
At the end of the journey, he's going to tie this to China. He has to. There is no way he lets it hang like this. He has to be like, and we have to do it because of China and Russia and the bad guys. There's no fucking way.
Well, that is the end of a journey for now. It started with an old book that really piqued my interest and brought me in.
Johnny Harris, this is my message to you. Read the works of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, okay? Just peek into it a little bit. Crack open a bad boy. I'm sure there's a dusty ass version that you can find at your local Portland bookstore, okay? Fair trade, organically grown, touched by fucking communists. I'm just saying, if you're that malleable from one book, Johnny Harris reads the Jakarta method, everything changes. Big game changer for him. He's like, I was so wrong about all the times that I said things about NATO. Like, everything that I've been advocating for, I was in the end, I was wrong.
To a history that I didn't know about. And through this process, I feel like I've been able to draw a linkage between this history and how it works today. How for-profit...
No, Parenti doesn't fit the bill. It has to be old and dusty, okay? Like, no, I'm not suggesting Chomsky. I'm not suggesting Parenti. I'm not suggesting any of that, okay? Vladimir Lenin. Very old, very dusty book, okay? Like, it will look so sick in his hands with a shit ton of Post-it notes attached to it. Okay?
Corporations are still motivated to expand their business by making more and more killing machines. Now, weapons are a stabilizing force in our world. That is true, and that is an irony of stability in the world. You have to have weapons to have some kind of stability for now. Weapons also are political leverage that the US uses to keep the world somewhat stable. And yet, there's a lot to scrutinize and critique about the way that it's done. We're dealing with weapons. This is dangerous stuff. We should be able...
How can you not love him? He's so serious. He's like, we're dealing with weapons here. This is dangerous stuff. He's awesome. He's such a lib. So like deep down inside, he's like, weapons are kind of scary, but also it's a necessity for stability. It's like, do you feel stable? In America, do you feel stable and safe? Okay. I don't. I feel like there's too many goddamn weapons everywhere. Okay. Doesn't really invoke stability. You feel me? Maybe he's on his journey, dude. I don't know. That shit would be poggers if he just becomes like a fucking rugged anti-imperialist diehard.
To properly criticize it and critique it. But instead, our ability to do that is hindered by the conflict of interest and the incentives that are brought on by these for-profit corporations.
Bro, if weapons give so much regional stability, why don't we just give a shit ton of weapons to China? You know what I mean? Like, this is what I don't understand. It's like, Why are we singling out 4 countries that we don't give weapons to? Here, let's give them some friendship weapons. You know what I mean? Like a bouquet. Yeah, dude. Arm China, arm Russia, arm the DPRK. Or do you need to have a villain so that the constant cycle of weapons manufacturing continues? We do to Taiwan? Yeah, that doesn't, no, that's not what I'm talking about. This is the opposite of what I'm talking about. I'm talking about mainland China. I don't understand. I am listening to Donald Harris at face value. This is my most trusted resource. This is my journalistic Joseph Smith, okay? He is my North Star. He is my beacon. He is Muad'Dib. You said, Donald, that weapons are done, they give weapons to these countries for stability and friendship. I think we should be giving China some J-damn fucking Mark 84s like pronto, some friendship weapons. That's what I want. I want friendship. Can we give friendship weapons to Russia? Maybe they'll cut it out. Maybe they'll stop bombing Ukraine if they get that friendship weapon. Also, Palestinians. But that part I do unironically agree with. We should be arming the Palestinian population. We should be doing that. They need an Iron Dome more than Israel right now, okay? We need to give Palestine an Iron Dome right now. This very moment. Tomorrow, we got to give them an Iron Dome. Both sides, baby. Fund both sides, come out on top.
And their relationship to our lawmakers. To me, this is what's wrong about the system. It perverts our ability to actually look into it, to actually scrutinize it properly, and to actually make the best decision for the safety and stability of our world. The weapons industry got out of control in the early 1900s and ended up contributing to the worst devastation the world had ever seen, which woke us up to actually being able to criticize this and trying to change it. A lot of those same conflicts of interest that keep war permanent and enriching still exist today. And my hope is that it doesn't take another devastating conflict for us to wake up. Covering war and conflict is something I'm not going to stop doing.
My goat, dude. Please keep doing it. I fucking love it when you do it, dog. All right, we're skipping. All right.
So last month, we were on a flight with fellow Aussie YouTuber Friendly